everyone, and welcome once again to the Open Mic, Writers in Their Own Words, the show where every episode I talk to writers, editors, sometimes agents, and others in the publishing game to learn about them and the work that they do. The show is available by the same name on both my YouTube channel and via all of the major podcast platforms. And you can subscribe to either or to both so you never miss a thing. I obviously hope you subscribe to both, but hey, you do you. I am going to come back to you a little bit later with the pitch to please subscribe and to maybe leave me a nice review. But right now, I always like to just hop right into it. As you know, of course, I'm your host, Rich Eisen. My guest today has a very eclectic, creative resume that includes novels, short stories, plays, poetry, craft books, which is why he's here today. We're going to talk about writing and even acting. Away from the keyboard, he has supported his writing habit as a technical writer and his food and shelter habit as a farm laborer, a bartender, and a holiday Santa, among many, many other things, which I love because, every writer I know has the most interesting work backstory because all the things you do to put food on your table while you're slinging words is always a great interest to me. But as you might imagine from that history course, he's learned a thing or two about marketing himself and his books. And he is here today to talk about that and to share some insights into helping other writers, whether you're an indie or you've got a big five deal, helping those writers to sell more of their work. So please welcome to the Open Mic, Writers in Their Own Words, Dale T. Phillips. Thanks for being here, Dale. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Rich. Fine, thanks. And thanks for having me, and thanks for promoting writers.
Well, it's funny. I do this. I feel like I have to explain this once in a while because I think everything in this world seems to get monetized or people want to monetize it. And I actually was at dinner with some friends the other night, and one of them was urging me to try to monetize the show. And I said, look, I know you're right. You're smarter than me, but I don't want to. This is the one thing I do in my whole life where I do it simply because I love to do it. I love to talk to writers. I'm a writer myself. I'm a reporter by trade. But I've got an agent, and my agent's out there diligently shopping my a new mystery manuscript for me. I understand what writers go through. I love talking to writers. I love being around writers. The craft is fascinating. The business is fascinating. So I never want to be caught up in that thing where I'm trying to do things to make more money. Now, when it comes to my book, I will. But this show is the one time where I get to do it just because I really enjoy it. So thank you for noticing. And I hope everyone that's listening knows how sincere I am about that. You'll notice you don't hear ads. You don't see them on my Facebook page or any of these things. I don't do any of that stuff. It's just you, me, and my guests. So anyway, enough about that because I really want to get to my guest. Dale, I want to start you out with one here because it's been the subject of many of the discussions that I've seen on writers' forums that I follow. This very discouraging reality of just how few books most writers actually sell. We know from some recent litigation and some discovery issues that even the big publishers will acknowledge most writers don't sell a lot of books. The big name, and frankly, the big publishers don't help them sell big books. They put most of their effort into the big name authors. This isn't really news to us, but it is a reality that is discouraging to a lot of writers who long for these perceived good old days when it was allegedly far easier to sell books and to get contracts, etc. I'll just say the fairy tale aspects of that belief notwithstanding, you have a book that offers writers many tangible, practical, doable ways to increase their sales. So that's why I'm really glad you're here today. Tell me and the audience about 87 ways to sell more books.
Can we see that?
Yeah, right there. If you are on YouTube, which you should be, that you're looking right at the book right there. And I would hold up mine, but mine's on Kindle, but he's got a copy right there. So
yeah, you can throw the image up. Yeah.
Tell about the book. Tell us about what a reader would expect to find. I mean, the title's fairly self-explanatory, but 87 is a lot. So give me an idea of what kind of information people will get here.
Yes, Rich, possibly there's an infinite number of ways. However, these are the effective ways to sell more. Now, I don't sell in the millions, but then again, I concentrate on my writing. And like you said, I don't want to necessarily spend all my time trying to monetize things. I want to create good books and get them out in the world. And I do a lot of things. I do a lot of promotion, but I don't do a lot of targeted marketing, because this is the big thing that all writers come up against. If you get on the marketing, it's like a hamster wheel. You keep running and running and running faster and faster. And if you step off, everything drops, your sales drop, and then you get depressed. So if you're always chasing numbers, you're never going to be happy. If you're on a bestseller list for 2 weeks, you want to be on for 4. If you sell 3,000 copies, you want to sell 4,000. You want to just keep going, and no number is ever going to be enough. But there are some things you can do that are easy and quick, and there's a lot more that take a lot more involvement, but you can do it to just at least get numbers up so that you're not in the basement. And do remember that the average book, no matter traditional or indie, will sell between 200 and maybe 2,000 copies in its lifetime. Yes, the odds are against you. So the key is discoverability to get your name out there.
Well, I'm going to circle back to discoverability, because I think that is the biggest thing every writer faces. I think without question, aside from just learning the craft. But we were talking about it a little bit before we came on the air. But share with the audience, what prompted you to actually write this book?
Thanks. I've been to a lot of writer conferences. I'm in a lot of writer groups. I speak to writers. I mean, there's critique groups. I give talks. I'm on panels. I'm speaking to writers all the time. And the number one question, which has a lot of subparts, is, oh goodness, how do I sell more books? I've heard of this. I've heard of that. What do I do? There's conflicting information out there. And I go, I hear you. So I've taken a lot of information from all the different sources, from writers, from websites, from books, from advice, what works for writers to do this, and put them all in a book to say, well, here's all the things you can do. Now, if you try to do them all, you'll drive yourself crazy. It will take all your time and you'll have no time to write. The big question is the WIBO. Would I be better off writing? And in a lot of cases, the people who are really good at marketing and are marketing all the time, if you read their books, it's like, maybe you ought to spend a little more time on the craft. But there is a balance. There is a good balance. I don't do all the things, because I told somebody just this last week, I'm like, look, I just want to be happy as a writer. And I'm like the happiest writer around. I am very content not having to sell 1 million copies. I know some of my stuff isn't necessarily commercial, and that's okay, because I never have to worry about being dropped by my publisher. I can put something out for the sake of it's just art. And I tell people, how many paintings did Vincent van Gogh sell in his lifetime? He sold 1, and that was to his brother, who owned an art gallery. Now, imagine everybody went out and told Vincent, you're a failure. You don't sell any paintings. Did that stop him? No, he painted right up until his death because he had to. And I think a lot of writers really have to. But they see other people. There's so much advertising about how these writers are doing great. They say Patterson, they see Stephen King, they say Rowling. I mean, they see all these authors who are successful. They don't realize that these are the lottery winners. And these people have been doing it for 20, 25 years to get to where they are. Yes, and they got lucky to get that point, but they had a particular thing that was a time and place. A lot of other people will make the short term. They'll do it for a while, and they'll be the flavor of the month. And then you see them 3 years later, and they haven't come out with another book. What happened? Well, they were so busy promoting the last books and trying to keep those numbers up, but then the numbers gradually decline. And then again, they're like, now what do? I got to do more and more and more.
Well, you address something that I talk a lot. And anyone who's listened or watched the show knows they've heard me talk about this before. But when people ask me about writing, the number one thing I always tell people is, what is it you want? That's the thing that you have to know more than anything else, is what is the thing that you want? What will make you happy? Because if the only thing in the world that will make you happy is getting, a Big Five contract or what have you. Okay, that's a very laudable goal. Very hard goal, very laudable. If you just want to get your book out and you want your mom to read it and be happy with it, that's fine too, if that's what you want. It's all about what it is you want to get out of this. And that's what I hear a lot in what you're saying, which is why I really appreciate this. Tell me, some of that seems very obvious to me. When you talk to writers, though, because I've talked with a lot of writers who look at me like I have three heads here, right? Like, what are you talking about? Isn't it about trying to get to the New York Times bestsellers list? Well, maybe for you it is. Maybe it's not for me. But when you talk to writers about some of these things and you lay it out in that way, what's the general response you get from folks? Do they generally agree with you, or do you find people kind of give you that look through that I was just describing I often get when I say that to people?
Well, I find that there's a lot of different types of writers, and some you can walk up with money on a silver platter and hand it to them, and they turn up their nose and they turn away, and others will say, it's just too hard. I don't know how to do it, and it's too hard. So I wrote the book and say, well, okay, here's what you can do. Others are constantly chasing. They don't realize that those lists are game systems. And unless you really are into that game and know all the algorithms and can play it, but that takes money, that takes promotion, that takes a lot of time. You're not going to get on those lists. They're not completely shut out to you. Sometimes accidents happen, but again, they're lottery winners. I'm writing these books, that one in this How to Be a Successful Indie Writer, to keep writers happy and to give them practical advice in the short term for just getting enough numbers to say, look, I'm making more than coffee money this month.
Right. Well, and you say in the intro to the book that a lot of the methods you're talking about are, or maybe at least should be, painfully obvious to most writers, but
Yes.
that many still struggle with them. What are some of the things that you see writers struggling with the most?
Even simple things like websites. I mean, I do a lot of promotion for other writers. And so when I tag their pictures from various events, I look for their website. A lot of times I can't even find it, or they don't have one, or it's so buried in the search algorithms that I can't get to it easily. And I have to go to like their Amazon page or their Facebook page or something. Like, a website is one of the bare minimums. Business cards. I talked to a writer at an event. Do you have business cards? No, I left them somewhere else. I'm like, how am I going to remember your name? I'm meeting, 35 people today, all new writers. How am I going to remember you and how to get in contact with you? It's simple things. There are some basics. Making sure you have your Amazon page fully laid out. Making sure you have all the information on your book on all the different formats, on all the different platforms. There are available things like putting your bio up, putting up an interview with yourself, answering some questions about writing, stuff that's free. And there's so many writers that don't even take advantage of the free promotions that, you can get a lot of these done in a fairly quick time. And then it's up there and you don't have to constantly go back and keep doing it.
What do you think are maybe the greatest advantages of modern technology and modern publishing as it comes to book sales? What are the biggest advantages for writers now as opposed to 20, 30 years ago?
Boy, I'll tell you, that's a great question, but it's so much better now because I started out, getting an agent, started out mailing stories off in printed out format with stamped self-addressed envelope, trying to get the right return postage, all this. The tools now that are available are phenomenal. Some are absolutely free and some are very low cost for you to be able to have your own business, to be able to not just do the word processing, to be able to send out a story via email and get an answer back within a month rather than 8, 10, 12 months like it used to be, of not having to go down to the post office and try to get international reply coupons if you're sending to England or somewhere else. The tools for publishing are easy enough. There are ebook formats. There's Smashwords, there's Draft to Digital, there's even a lot of others. There's the print capabilities of Lightning Source. There's Amazon. You can even go with offset printing if you want. There's audiobooks. There's free ways to make audiobooks, which used to cost thousands of dollars. And you get all this. And a lot of authors don't even have their books on audios. And I keep telling them, there's a free way to do this, to just get it out in the world. And then you move on to the next thing. There's so many different factors that people can take advantage of. And again, you don't need a lot of money. I keep seeing these links once in a while. It's like, you need $8,000 to be able to get your book out. I'm just like, no.
I know. I mean, I think a lot of money was made at one time, and probably still is being made off preying off people's desire to have a sense of legitimacy. Or
there still is.
It really is a kind of shocking how I understand it. I mean, when you want something so bad and this other thing is not really your strength, you're so susceptible to being pulled into something that really is just a scam. I wish there was a better way to put it, but it's not. They're just scams. They're not going to help you sell more books at all.
That's right.
Absolutely. Just
the funny thing is that vanity publishing, they used to think of self-publishing. You're not self because you're getting a book cover designer, you're getting an editor, you're possibly getting a formatter, you're getting beta readers, advanced readers. You're doing all of this, not self. The image was that you don't even know how bad your stuff is, and you're just pushing out garbage to the world. There is a certain percentage of people doing that. However, the real professionals are almost indistinguishable from people from traditional publishing, and they have much better options for getting that out because they control all the rights. They can get that out in a lot of other formats. There's authors that have posted on their websites about having agents who never even told them about deals that were being offered because it's like, it's not worth the agent's time. They'd only make $100. The author would make a lot more, but it never got out there. And they're like, if these are some of the best agents that are still doing this, what is it? And everybody desperately wants an agent. I had an agent. I fired him not badly after a few years, but I'm like, you're not doing anything. I mean, we had interest, but no sale. And I'm like, I'll be dead before I get all the books out that I want to get out. So I moved to small press. And after 2 years, I'd learned I could do everything that they do. And I said, well, I don't need them anymore. And there's no profit by the time they take their cut, the printing costs. If I sell to a library or a bookstore, there's no money left over, and sometimes I'm losing money.
Yeah.
So now that I know, and if I can learn everything I need to know in 2 years or less, and now the information is actually out there more readily available to everyone. With books like mine and books like very many others, you don't have to question. You don't have to be lost in the forest for years. You've got answers. A quick Google search can give you a dozen books that will answer your questions and put you on the path that you want.
Well, you brought up a good point, though. I mean, I do think there was a time vanity publishing was that, and there was no editing that went into it. As whatever you gave it, whatever you submitted, whatever you put up is what printed out. And if it was full of typos or whatever the case may be, that was it. You got a book, but that's all it was words between covers. What we see in independent publishing now, you're right, there are still some that are not good, but that's, I think, by far the minority now. The vast majority of indie books out there now, sure. Yeah, there might be, like I said, that small group, but most of the indie books I see now are extraordinarily well done. People have put good money into hiring a good developmental editor and a copy editor, have a great cover design, have everything that you would want and expect out of a deal with a big five publisher or even a mid-level or what have you. And, look, the big secret I think that a lot of people maybe don't know is unless your name happens to rhyme with Stephen King or John Grisham, you're going to do all the promotion yourself anyway. They're not going to do any promotion for you. I mean, very, 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 very little promotion is going to be paid for by your publisher. So you're going to end up doing it anyway. So I can certainly see the benefit. And by the way, I'm on my third agent. So I am totally getting with what you said. And I'm actually, I'm going to say I'm on my last agent, because if this one doesn't work out, I am probably going to immerse myself the way you have, which brings me to the next thing. We haven't talked about it yet. I certainly get it from your book and certainly from the tone of this conversation. If you are going to go independent, the thing that seems to me the most important is to really have an entrepreneurial mindset, and to recognize that you're going into a business. It is a business of creativity, but it is a business. Whatever level you want it to be, do you talk to writers about that and about that mindset that they need to bring into to trying to be successful at whatever level they want to be as an independent author?
Absolutely. Now, most of us got into writing not to be a business person, not to be an entrepreneur, not to start our own companies. However, if you want to make yourself happy, having control over your art is the best way to make that happen. And so you can start slowly, you can start in pieces, you can partner with people. If you're not the good business person, get somebody who's willing to work with you to make that happen, to do the right things. Because every business person will tell you, you can fall down starting a business so easily and do it so wrong. But now, like I said, the information is available. There are people available. There's help for you. And yes, I go to a lot of writers who have no clue. Rich, they don't even understand copyright, let alone, licensing your copyright, not just giving away the copyright, but giving away pieces of it while still retaining the rights. And you can share out these pieces, like Christine Casson Rush and Dean Wesley Smith talk about this a lot. It's like, don't sell the farm, you rent this field over here and you rent this field, but you still got them under your control and you can do what you want with them. And if something better comes along, you can pivot. Big publishers cannot pivot. If you find a lot of mistakes in the galley, sometimes they stay there because it's too expensive to change them, in the galley proofs. I can go and change a day. If somebody tells me I can go online, I can have new editions out within that afternoon. I mean, that's control over your art. But yes, there's so many writers who don't know. And that's why I try to educate them. I mean, I give a lot of talks. I'm on panels. I go to writer conventions and I help other writers with these questions, because they've always got these questions. And that's kind of why I wrote these books, is because you get the same questions over and over and go, well, here's the answer.
Right.
Here you go. It's in here. And if you still got questions, send me an email.
One of your chapters, and I don't want to go through all 87 chapters of it.
Oh, come on. We got all afternoon, right?
But you do a great job in this book of and all the chapters are fairly brief. They're very direct to the point. You don't pussyfoot around. You get right in and give people good information. And so I really want to say that I think if you're trying to figure out, well, again, whether you're traditional or indie, somewhere in between, what have you, hybrid, there is a lot of stuff in here that will help people figure out A to B. Should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? And so one of the things, like, and you mentioned it earlier, is the website. Now, I was originally going to ask if you still feel it's important for writers to have a website. Clearly you do. But maybe let me pivot and ask, what kind of website? Because I think, you can go WordPress, you can spend a lot of money putting up a really great website, or you can spend a few bucks and get a WordPress-based one and have it up today. Do you have a general thought on what serves writers the best when it comes to a website?
And yes, whatever makes you happy. I mean, do you want to drive a Cadillac? Or do you want to drive a very serviceable, low-end vehicle? You need the basics on a website. You don't need much more than that, but you always can fancy it up. But again, there are so many tools. There's so many people to help for low cost. You spend the money you want. You get the design you want. You make it so that you're happy with what's there. But so many people meet you. And again, like myself, every time I meet a new writer, first thing I do is go to their website. What are you doing right? Do you need help in a lot of areas? Are your book covers available? Is it where to buy available? Is there a short bio? Is there the basics of it? You only need like I think 5 pages, essentially, to do it. And again, it's basic, it's simple, it's quick, but that's just one of the starting points. If you don't have it, I know friends that still don't. And I go, how are people going to find you? Well, well, I just hope they will. And I'm like, okay.
Well, and that brings me to social media, because I think a lot of writers, and you have a chapter in the book about social media, and you go through all the various platforms, and there's so many, and, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, now X, all the other ones that, the Blue Skies and the Threads and all the ones that popped up after everyone got mad at Elon Musk, on and on and on. There's a half dozen I've left out, I'm sure. But again, regular viewers / listeners to the show know I have a pet peeve with writers and social media who only use it, whose every message is to please buy my book. That drives me insane, because I just feel like such a wasted opportunity to connect with readers who could become a reader for the duration, as opposed to somebody who might, maybe 0.1% of the time, buy the book you keep hammering them over the head to buy. Now, that's my opinion. Please share your thoughts on how writers can best use social media to help them if their ultimate goal is to try to sell more books.
You are absolutely correct. I tell people, don't just go on social media and post buy my book all the time. Social media is there for you to make a connection to readers, to potential fans, which we didn't have before. I mean, sometimes people would write you letters, but that was about it. Now you have a way of actually putting out stories about yourself, about interest to them, about providing content as you do, which is of interest to a fan base. Once you get them interested, it's not just about the hard sell. And I tell the same thing, I go to conventions and conferences, and I sell people doing the hard sell. Hey, here's my book. And I'm like, no. I ask people when they're coming by, hey, how's it going? Are you having a good time here? Do you like to read? And what do you like to read? And from their answer, I say either if I don't have something for them, I will send them to somebody who does. I will make a recommendation. Sometimes I'm writing something on a piece of paper. Read this book. This is fantastic. You'll love it. Or that person over there has exactly what you want. You should go talk to them. But here's what I have available. If you like X and Y, I might have something that appeals to you. But take a look. Here's some descriptions. Here's the covers. Here's all the books. Take a look. But it's not like push, push, push. Nobody likes that in any type of salesperson.
Yeah. I so hope people are ingesting that and taking it to heart. I always think of my friend Jim Latwell, who's, very, very successful.
Yeah.
And, he set the whole not my cat thing. And for those of you who are, unaware, Jim's a very successful crime fiction author. His work has been nominated for Edgars and Lefties, and, he's won all kinds of these awards. Really, and he's a great guy. But, the story in his life is, a neighbor's cat started coming over to his house and hanging out, and he'd find him in the house, and he wanted to hang out with Jim while Jim was writing. There was this big black cat. And so he started posting things to his social media about this cat that would come over, and he would say, this is not my cat. And it eventually became a whole thing of not my cat. It had its own hashtag. And when Jim goes to conferences, he'll often have a little stuffed black cat animal that he takes with him and he puts on the table with him and things. And people love to hear stories about this cat, and they want to get their picture with this stuffed animal. And
it's fun. It's a connection to all the cat lovers. I think John Scalzi, the very successful science fiction writer, he had a great interaction on social media. And one day he posted a picture of his cat with a picture of a piece of bacon taped to the cat. He got so much more interaction from that than anything else. And he goes, what am I doing trying to do anything besides this? A picture of bacon taped to a cat, and that's it. Toni Kellner rates the Skeleton series, which is a lot of fun. A skeleton that still helps solve mysteries. And she has Sid the skeleton, and she takes it to conferences. She posts Sid in funny poses, going on vacation, doing all this. People love that. that sort of interaction, making it fun for them, having to comment, giving a chance to be part of the author's life other than just, you put out a book, I buy the book, that's it.
Right. Years ago, I was at a conference in San Diego, and I was sitting at a table. There was only a couple of us there, and I don't remember how it was just a few of us there. It was probably by genre or something. But long story short, I ended up talking with a gentleman next to me, and we were having all these conversations, and there somebody else joined us, and we all were having this great conversation back and forth. And at some point, it got brought up where I'm from. Well, this person knew somebody in my town. He said, well, do you know this person? Well, we actually did. I know him quite well, right? And so that was this whole connection. And one of the last things he asked me, he said, well, are you going to stick around tomorrow for, the thing tomorrow? And I said, well, I don't know. I had to drive back, home. I wasn't sure I was going to stay. And he goes, well, if you stay, make sure to say hi because I'm giving the keynote. It was Jonathan Mayberry, who, if you don't know Jonathan Mayberry,
I do, yeah.
In the thriller and dark fantasy world, this is one of the biggest names in our industry. Barna, and Jonathan, I think, is on about his 67th or 68th novel, hundreds of short stories that have published in anthologies. And the man is a living legend. I didn't know who he was because I was not a dark fantasy.
Yeah, he's great. He actually wrote the introduction for one of our collections. Oh, myself and a bunch of other writers.
One of the
generosity of these people is incredible.
One of the most generous and supportive of fellow writers I've ever known. The point was, he did not mention or try one time to get me to buy a book. Right. Needless to say, since then, I've become a huge fan and I've read dozens of his books. But that's the point. I think sometimes if you're trying to make connection, people want to have a connection with you. Now, that means you don't need to invite people over for dinner and all that stuff. But talking about something more than, here, I'm having a 2-for-1 on my book. You can get to that. You'll get to that. I promise you'll get to that, right? That's how it works.
You're absolutely right. Like last year at Maine Crime Wave, Carla Neggers is a best-selling author, and she was there. And I just started talking with her by the book table, and she sees my book, and she picks up a copy, and she tells the conference, it's not about pushing your book. He didn't push the book on me. I saw this. I talked with him. We had a connection, and I got his book, and here it is. I'm like, here's a best-selling author telling the conference, unprompted and unbribed by me as of yet, that here's something, and this is how to do it. Make a connection.
Well, okay. I'm going to ask you a little bit about your books here, the rest of your books in just a moment, because I know this is hardly your only book, as I know that you have this great eclectic creative side that I want to ask you about in a minute. But as far as this book goes, what are the one or two things you really want people to take away from this book and these 87 things that you lay out there? What are the things that you hope they take away the most from this?
Excellent question. What are your expectations? How much do you want to work? And how happy will you be? Do you have goals? Remember, you do not have control of the number of sales. You can, as Barbara Ross says, you can do everything right and still not move the sales needle. It's not a guarantee. These things will help you to sell more books because the more things you do, the luckier you get, the more opportunities you get. However, don't just go on 12 social media platforms and be posting all the time, never write, never be happy, always trying to chase that elusive more that never is enough. It's the Red Queen's race. Always do just what makes you happy. And there's a lot of writers who are introverts, and some of these methods involve talking to people. And there's a lot of writers who don't want to do that. They want to sit in a room and write. And I go, if that's it, that's okay. These things are available for those who enjoy them. I really like going to conferences and making connections with fans and other writers. That's part of why I'm in this. I go, I do what makes me happy in this game. I don't do a lot of the stuff of eternal marketing because that's like having a second job. And I'm like, that's not the job I want. I'm not on Mad Men or something like that. It's just, that's not what I'm about. I'm here to create good stuff, find good people who share the reading interests, and make connections.
Right. Well, as I noted, you have many novels that you've written. Yeah, like I say, I alluded to it in the intro. I love on your website how you put together under your bio the list of many things that you have done. And you know, when I was being a little tongue in cheek in the intro, you know, but you know, and it's true. Everyone, you know, has to figure out how to, you know, make a living in this world. But I love, I mean, some of the ones I didn't even list in the intro, you know, you list yourself as a bait salesman, a golf pro shop assistant, a clean room machine operator. I mean,
an experimental lab subject.
Those, I love all those. Those are great. Those are, you know, the holiday Santa. Those are all really fun things. But you know, on the more serious side, of course, is you also are an author. You've got the Cole Hampton series. Tell me more about some of your books, so folks maybe have a chance if they're listening to this. They go, hey, you know, that Dale Phillips guy's pretty cool. Maybe I want to check out one of his books. Give us a little bit of a rundown on what that series is.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to promote. Absolutely. Since I had Stephen King as a writer back in college, I figured I had to do something with it. Life got in the way between college and later on. I didn't get my first novel published until 2011. And then in 12 years, I got 33 books out, and I'm lazy. Okay? People think I write every day. No, I'm one of those bad example writers who, you know, the muse has to come and go, hey, you, do this. Yes, ma'am. And I absolutely do it. And sometimes there's like more than one. Sometimes I'm working on 3 or 4 books at a time, a couple of stories and a lot more. However, I do love to get fired up about it. And that's why I like my writing. I have a mystery series set in Portland, Maine, because there's all the big PIs, New York, Chicago, LA, even Boston. That's great. How about in a much smaller place where the protagonist has no connections, who has a haunted past, who's trying to help people, but man, the law of unintended consequences. And so sometimes if people are there, I say, so this series is set in Portland. Do you know Portland at all? And a lot of times people do. And I say, well, if you don't know it, it makes you want to go there. And if you do know it, you'll know all the spots I'm writing about. That's the kind of connection. A lot of times they like start looking at them and they'll pick one up because, yes, I want the first one. I want to see what a book set in Portland is about. But I have a lot of different genres besides the nonfiction to help other writers. I have mystery series. I write horror. I write science fiction, a lot of different things. And because I write and publish a lot of stories, I get them into collections after I get the rights back from the magazines they're in.
Yeah, I've noticed that you have a couple of short story collections too, which I love short story collections. I'm a big fan of anthologies and collections because I just I love the that it has a connective tissue, but that they're all different, right? I love that smorgasbord of storytelling, right? And I read a ton, right? As you might imagine, just from doing this, but I would be reading a ton regardless. But I have to read even more just to keep up with the number of guests that come on my show. But I love that. I love being able to get all different kinds of writers and seeing their different styles. It's helped make me a better writer for sure. 100%. I mean,
yeah, I would love to see all the titles of all the books behind you too, you know, to compare and go, oh, there's a good one.
Yeah. People always say, oh, you haven't read all those. And all I can say is, yeah, I have actually.
Pretty much most of them. Yeah. Well, you'll like my big.
Few over here I haven't got to yet.
Right, that's the TBR pile. Yeah.
Yeah, that's half of my TBR pile right now. The other half's next to my nightstand in our bedroom. But anyway.
Well, one friend suggested, because I had those different collections of different genres, he said, why don't you do one big book of all of them? And I went, yeah, okay. The big book of genre stories. So I took 5 different books and put them into one big collection so that people have like 30 different stories in all different genres. So you can pick and choose no matter what you're in the mood for. And I go, yeah, that's a lot of fun. And it's a good bargain for people too.
Yeah, I like that. All right. Well, I always like to end on what I hope is a fun question. It's certainly mean for it to be a fun question. And I try to have a little bit of a theme. Sorry there.
Don't worry.
The animals come with the come with the show, people. That's how it works.
That's it.
I'm going to offer you three people. Which one of these three people, if I had this omnipotent power to put you together with them and spend a little time with them and talk writing or any other thing you'd want to talk, which one would you choose and why? And the three people I'm going to offer you are Jacqueline Kennedy. I want to ask this if I'm being completely full there. Dick Simon, one of the co-founders of Simon & Schuster, you may have heard of, and Matt Damon, the very well-known actor who also writes quite a few of his own scripts. So Matt Damon, Jackie Kennedy, or Dick Simon, who would you choose and why?
Well, Matt's still alive, and from what I've seen of him, is an incredibly interesting and diverse person. He does a lot of excellent charity work, which I don't know if you know. He's just come out with a new documentary about making music in Sarajevo during the war.
Oh, wow.
To give people a message of hope. It's called The Future, Music is the Future, something like that, but it's brand new. It's just coming out in a couple days. U2 took part in it, but they actually showed that these people, the music was resistance to the terrible goings on that were happening. It gave people hope. And I go, that is such a brilliant message. He's done some wonderful movies. He's also a Boston-based boy, and he and Ben Affleck, I mean, they're just a fun pair. And every time you see him, he's intelligent, he's well-spoken, he cares about other people, and he's incredibly creative and productive. That's the kind of model that I like. A successful person who's a good person and who's doing good things for others. That's the model I want to follow.
Well, there you go. And his mom was a teacher, so there you go.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so if he's listening, Matt, give me a call. We'll talk. I actually had on his charities, it's like you could enter a lottery. If you donated money, you could enter a lottery to have lunch with him and another guest. So,
oh, well, that'd be fun, wouldn't it? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear. He has done so many movies that I've really liked. I would love to hear the little bit backstory on Good Will Hunting. That's always been one of my very, very favorite movies.
Right.
But I've loved many things he's done. So anyway,
I consider him for the protagonist role in my Zach Taylor series, and now he's starting to get a little too old for the real action film. So
I know that damn time only goes one way, doesn't it?
The arrow.
Yeah, the bummer. All right, well, Dale, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on the show today. It's been a fascinating conversation. As I said earlier, I love talking with writers. I love talking with creative folks who take a very intelligent approach to this, because it's labor of love for 99% of us that do it. None of us are going to retire off this for sure. So, it's fun to talk to people who have, creative energy and want to share what they know about how to make that creative energy work the best for other people. And you mentioned earlier, I have never met a more generous group of people than certainly in the mystery, thriller, suspense space. I don't know about some of the others, but boy, in this space, I have never met a more just collegial group of folks than these folks. So if you're interested in this world at all, I highly recommend, do your work, do your work, do what needs to be done. But it's a great world to be part of, even a little small part of it like I have. So, Dale Phillips for Dale Phillips, for myself, I'm going to leave you with two things. One, please, if you haven't hit subscribe, please do so. And if you'd be so kind as to leave a review, it does help people find the show. And if you know somebody who's interested in writing or thinks they might be interested in writing or maybe selling more books, tell them about this show. Tell them they might learn some stuff here. And you know what? It's all free. So that's a great thing. So, very last thing I'll leave you with, as always, is, tomorrow is not promised to any of us. So please, whatever you're doing, make today count. Yeah, and for my guest, Dale T. Phillips, for myself, Rich Eisen, for my two crazy English setters behind me over here making ruckus, this has been The Open Mic. Writers in their own words. See you next time.